Jim Williams, Washington-based CEO, media consultant, 7-time Emmy Award-winning TV producer, director, and also a part of Forbes and Zanger as a columnist. He's been with us a handful of times as one of the knowledgeable, experienced people when it comes to guests, as it comes to media deals. Jim, thanks for your time as always. Paul Craig and David Smoak, and we appreciate all the time when you sometimes are able to promote what we do, and including this segment. So you had the tweet earlier, a couple of them, about that at least the Pac-12, Apple TV Plus, but they want the entire Tier 1 package, and there's still a linear partner issue holding it up. Is this any different than really what you've touched on before, or is this more of this could be the target now for the Pac-12?
No, to your point, Smokey, it really is kind of like these guys have been there forever and they're still there, meaning the two streamers. And the linear portion of the program has yet to be solved. It should be pointed out that Apple has no problem working with a linear partner. Okay, so anybody who thinks that they're not going to play nice with somebody in the linear field, that's not an issue at all. So the issue really is who is going to be the partner, the linear partner. One other quick note, which I thought was fascinating, Spencer McLaughlin, who's locked on Pac-12, did a piece which I thought was interesting. And that was, in the last 4 years, the Pac-12 hasn't had more than 53% linear. So if you're going to do a deal where you've got the guy, the president from President Young at Arizona, saying we have to have more than 50% and all that. They've never had more than 52 or 53%. So what's a 50-50 deal?
So, Jim, Apple, this is a very Apple move. They want it all or they want none of it kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So would this be, can we get you to make the deal with us right now and then we'll help you find the linear partner after so it gets done?
Look, Paul, I wouldn't take anything off the table. Anything's possible for sure. I think one of the things that people need to remember is that Apple and Amazon have not, they've dabbled in the pro ranks on stuff, but they have never been in the college bit. And they both want the college space because, to be honest, that's a very, as you guys know, that's a very loyal and an incredibly vast audience. And these guys are salespeople. They sell, Apple sells stuff, Amazon sells stuff. So it's a good demographic. And actually, if you don't get the Pac-12, right, there's not another contract up for at least 5 years. So if you want to get in the space, the Pac-12 is your space, if you're a streamer.
So, Jim, what do you think this looks like? So, Apple getting Tier 1, is that like all the Prime games on Saturday, and then they'll, try to do Amazon Prime on Friday? Can you kind of break it down for those that don't follow closely?
Okay. My guess is this is 100% guess.
Right.
Okay. Would be Friday night, they would have some situation where they could craft a game for Amazon, because then Amazon could promote it on Thursday night. Okay. That leaves the Saturday windows, right? And the Saturday windows would be 3:30. I'm using Eastern times.
Okay.
3:30, which is 12:30 out there. Then the 7:30, which is 4:30 out there. And then, of course, the After Dark, which would be 10:30 Eastern time. So those are three windows on a Saturday. Theoretically, let's just play with, say it's Fox, okay? We'll use them as an example. Fox, who has partnered with Apple in the MLS deal, they wouldn't have to produce the games. The games should be produced by Apple. They'd be streamed by Apple, but they'd all simulcast on a linear platform. And so I could see that working, because then you could, Apple could sell everything and say, look, all you have to do is pay one price and you get to see all the games, and they're all produced using the Pac-12 network as their production arm. So I would see how the games would be on both Apple and a linear partner, if the linear partner is Fox or a CW or somebody like that. So there's ways to make it work. I don't know what the number is, but I would imagine the number is going to be, we talked about it a number of times, somewhere in the neighborhood of north of 25, but probably south of 35. So, it's going to be in that sweet spot. It's probably going to be, it could be less than what the Big 12 is asking. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know how many times we've had this conversation, but it's going to boil down to, can you live with, a company that, a package that has 50 or, 45% linear in the rest of it streaming. You could make an argument that streaming would be easier to get than the Pac-12 network. So anyway, that's where it is at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, Jim, what would be the biggest drawback to just pulling the trigger on it?
Then just doing the deal with Apple?
Yeah.
Well, my guess is, if it were me, I'd do it. And just, suffer the slings and arrows of some people got, messed up. Because, I guess the thing is, we've got so hooked into, and ESPN, and God love them, they paid me for years, so I get no grief about that. But I guess in some minds, if you're not on ESPN, you're not an official conference. I don't know how that works, but anyway, it's a mindset. You're going to have to teach people to go to a streaming platform and watch your game. I mean, so is that a problem? It can be, but either you're going to have them as partners one way or the other, unless you go into the ESPN zone area, which is going to pay you a considerable amount less.
The Pac-12, okay, so Apple TV Plus, without the linear or whatever they do to sell it off,
right?
You think that's enough? That if it's a number that's enough to keep everybody together?
The number, I don't think is a problem. I think that the perception of distribution would be the problem.
Okay.
I mean, people have a mindset that this is the way, that it's the future, right? And is the future now? As I said, I would pull the trigger and do it if I were them, but nobody asked me. And you could always go and you remember, when you and I got in this business, there was the Raycoms of the world, and there was the Lorimars of the world, and there were the syndicators, right? Where they would go and get the TV stations and line them up, and you'd be watching, your local Southwest Conference game on Channel 21 in Houston or Channel 5 in Dallas or whatever. But you might be able to do that with a CW and say, look, if the money's not a problem, all right. In other words, if Apple is rolling out the cash to do this, and you can live with that, then you don't necessarily need money from a linear partner. You might be able to do that with a deal where you would do a revenue share. Again, this is just me spitballing here. This is not me saying this is what's going to happen. But if Apple were willing to pay for that package and hold on to the streaming rights, then the linear rights will, you could play that kind of game where you do a revenue share. But again, that's me just playing commissioner of the Pac-12, which is a dangerous thing to do these days.
Jim, do you think there's as much of a chance, and I know necessarily Big 12 fans won't love this or expansionists won't necessarily love this, but is there as much of a chance that going this streaming route is like the next revolution in college football viewing, and they're at the forefront of it as compared to the odds of this being a flailing proposition that, leaves them with a lot less eyeballs than everybody else? Is there as much of a chance this is like the start of something pretty cool and they're the leaders, or the opposite?
Oof. I'm going to go with they could be the leaders in this, because I don't see 5 years from now, I don't see ESPN, not trying to monetize ESPN Plus is the best they can. I don't see NBC not trying to monetize Peacock and Paramount Plus, for CBS. And just remember too, guys, that at the end of the day, we're looking at where Bally's went out of business with, from the standpoint of baseball, NBA, and those rights. So the direct-to-consumer video for sports is coming, quickly. And I also spoke to a couple of cable people who are saying if ESPN thinks they're getting $5, a month from us anymore, they're not. These contracts are not going to happen. So they're as I said, the direct-to-consumer portion of this situation may be coming sooner than later. So I guess if they got into it, meaning the Pac-12 got into a deal with Apple, in 5 years they may look like geniuses.
There's somebody on the chat.
Go ahead.
Who do sports bars carry anything Apple? Somebody was asking this on the chat room. Is that one of the? Can they just pop that up like you can at home, whatever you want?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, what they would do, what Apple's done that with the MLS, that the same thing that Netflix, Amazon did is they made a deal with DirecTV, and so you can. It's not on DirecTV, but it's on DirecTV commercial, which is where the bars get it. So yeah.
Paul asked a question earlier today about.
Sure.
Do you think there's a possibility, Jim, not that you're in the boardrooms, but you've been in these things before, that even with USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12 in a year, that there might be some universities, presidents, whoever, who still feel very highly of themselves, no matter if USC and UCLA are in the conference or not, and almost perhaps too highly of themselves? Not that you can't be confident, but it might be slowing down this process.
100%. This is I don't know how many times I've had this conversation. You don't know the Pac-12 until you're in the Pac-12. And that's not, I'm not throwing shade on the conference or the people, okay, at all. This is an academic conference, and they look at things in a whole different light than anybody else. Does that mean that people wouldn't move if they don't get the right deal? No. Any one of the Four Corner schools or certainly Washington, Oregon, any of those, they could all be gone tomorrow. And by the time we finish this conversation, they could be gone. I don't know. But at the end of the day, if you have ever been around the folks at the Pac-12, you know that the term, student athlete is really a term that they value. Not that anybody else in any other conference doesn't, but it's almost like an Ivy League thought about how they do things in the Pac-12.
Jim, the way I would have like to think about it is that it's kind of like somebody invites you to play a sport that you played at high school and you were really good, and you haven't played in a little while, and you think, yeah, I was awesome at basketball in high school. I'm going to smoke these fools. And then you don't realize that you're 40 pounds heavier, you haven't run gassers and all that stuff, and then you're not quite as good as you used to be. That's kind of where I feel like the Pac-12 is that they don't realize that, like, yeah, they know that USC and UCLA are gone, but they have not come to grips with the fact that, like, that changes them fundamentally.
They haven't gone through the 5 stages of grief, is that what you're telling me?
Exactly, yeah.
It may be. I mean, look, it's just the other part of this is the whole ecosystem of, between 50 and 60,000 of their graduates work in the tech industry. So when they talk streaming, it's like, okay, fine. They go home, they watch something on Netflix. They probably, a lot of these people don't have cable, so it's not a big thing to them. It's like one of those things where where something and you can't figure out why someone else can't understand it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of it as well. Okay, is there are schools in the pack that have, if you, for instance, if you have an Apple Watch, right, that was developed at Stanford Medical School. So there's incubators for, the Pac-12 birthed these networks. Apple TV Plus and Amazon and YouTube and others. So on one side of campus, if you will, they're promoting the fact that, we are the home of the people who created the tech that you're using today and into tomorrow. So they're insulated in a bubble, if you will. And so they're thinking, okay, well, I don't understand why people don't understand streaming will work. But there's other people within the conference, again, we reference Arizona, but they're not the only ones, that look at it and say, okay, wait a minute, I can't do this. If I do this, it's going to kill my recruiting. So I'm sure that there's a lot of give and take, back and forth that's going on in these boardrooms between the presidents. And what can we accept and still get through and stay together? And I mean, remember, it takes 8 votes to get this thing passed. So whatever it is, and whenever it comes, and I do think it'll come next month, early next month, it's going to have to get 8 votes. Without 8 votes, it doesn't work.
Hey, Jim, this is just a general question, not necessarily completely focused on the idea of the pack on Apple or Amazon, but how do streamers note their return on investments for specific properties? I guess if you're like selling the NFL, Sunday Ticket for YouTube TV, YouTube's going to know, like, these people are signing up for Sunday Ticket. We had 1 million plus people sign up for. But how do you differentiate that somebody signed up for Apple TV to watch Ted Lasso versus Pac-12? Does that make sense? I'm just curious from a tech standpoint how that works.
There are a number of ways that they can do that, and the only way, I mean, I'm probably the worst person to explain this, but I will do my best to explain part of it. And that is, they can when you go into, you can get a promo code or something like that. And so if they want you, let's say you're a Pac-12 person, you want to sign up for Apple TV, you can get like $5 off or whatever if you enter a promo code or however that works. We've seen it, for advertisements all over for HelloFresh and all the other things. It's really no different than that, right? You enter the code so they know that you buy the ticket. Now, to your other point, which is the most important one, return on investment, there's no way that they're going to get that money back in 2 or 3 years. And they know that. I mean, they realize that, you're not going to turn all these people into Apple TV or Amazon TV subscribers overnight. It's going to take, there's got to be a learning curve. That's why the NFL has an 11-year deal with Amazon, and that's why the MLS did a 10-year deal with Apple. Is, it's a slow burn, right? So that's why I think that, this is one of those things where will Apple know quickly what's happening? They'll know some, but they're certainly not going to know where. They're not going to make the money back, but I don't think they necessarily are looking to do that right now. I think they're looking to get into the college space because, it's a very lucrative space.
What?
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Jim. One clarification. If you said Apple TV, how long of a contract would that possibly be?
You mean for the pack?
Yes.
I don't think you're going to get them to sign a contract more than 6 years.
Okay, 6.
Again, it's me guessing.
Yes,
but
no, I get it.
But that puts them in line with when everybody else gets renegotiated.
Right.
Okay, so I wouldn't think that they would sign a 10 or 11-year deal. My point there was for the NFL on Amazon and for the MLS and baseball on Apple, that you really need to have some time to roll it out, and when you're not going to make money for a while. But there's one other thing too, and I know that people on Twitter are going, well, we'd rather have Amazon than Apple. It's like, look, in a perfect world, George Kogoff would rather have the contract that the Big Ten had than what he's dealing with right now. But here's the difference. Apple TV, Amazon Prime has, or at least they promote it to have, about 40,000 titles. That means movies, TV shows, specials, whatever, okay? Apple doesn't have a third of that. So Apple needs and wants content. Whatever they do, they're ending up doing 800 MLS events. Same thing would be, they would end up probably doing that many in the Pac-12 if they got the whole package. So, it is what it is today, and God knows, guys, Monday, or by the time, as I said, we end this interview, we could see a whole new landscape and a whole new group of people involved.
Jim, thanks for your
today,
time.
That's where it is.
Yeah, well, and it's an ever-changing, we've seen it. The landscape has changed in college athletics as much as it has just for the media deal with the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Jim Williams.
Have a good weekend.
Forbes and Zanger columnist, you too. And then also a media consultant with us on 365 Sports. Some of you say that's not